What if a pregnant woman and her two little girls disappeared? But her house looked more like nobody had actually left. Her car and her phone was there, the kids' car seat was there, but the only one thing missing was them. Well, this is Shanann Watts' story, and welcome to my another video. Actually, I want to start with an early Monday morning, August 13, 2018, around 1:48 a.m. Shannon came back home from a work trip in Arizona, and her friend Nicole Atkinson dropped her off at her house in Frederick, Colorado. But who is Shannon Watts at all? She's 34 years old and she's energetic, social, and active online, and the kind of person who stayed in touch with the people close to her. Also, she was about 15 weeks pregnant and she had two little daughters, Bella, who was 4 years old, and Celeste, who was 3. But everyone called her CeCe anyway. Her husband Chris Watts worked in oil and gas industry, and from the outside he seemed quiet, normal, and low drama. That night, Shannon walked into the house. The girls and the Chris were inside, but after that, nobody outside that house ever saw Shannon alive again. A few hours later, Shannon wasn't answering. No calls, no texts. She even missed a doctor's appointment. And to Nicole Atkinson, it didn't feel like Shannon at all. Shannon didn't just disappear without telling anyone, not with the little kids and being pregnant, and not right after coming back from a trip. So it seems more unusual now. After that, Nicole went to the Watts house and Shannon's car was in the garage, and her phone, purse, medication, and personal things were inside the house. So, if Shannon had left with Bella and CeCe, how? Without her phone, without her car, or without even saying one word to her closest friend? Well, it was almost impossible for Shannon. At the time, Nicole called Chris and he was at work. He just said that maybe she had gone to a friend's house, or maybe she just wasn't answering, and maybe she went to somewhere else. But which friend? With what and where? As you can see, he didn't have a solid answer. Nicole just then let it go, and the police came for welfare check. Around 1:30 p.m., Chris came home and they went inside. There was some obvious crime scene waiting for them, but the details were off. Shannon's phone, purse, medication were inside the house, and her car was in the garage, while the kids' car seats were still there. And the bed in the main bedroom looked strange with the sheets pulled off. Well, to be honest, Chris tried to explain it and he said that Shannon got home around 2 a.m. They talked early that morning about separating. Also, he said that he backed his truck up to the garage around 5:27 a.m., loaded his tools, and left for the work. There was one quiet witness he couldn't talk around, and it was the neighbor's camera. Actually, the footage showed his truck and it showed him near the garage, but it didn't show Shannon and the kids leaving. Actually, there was no footage of them leaving and walking out of that house. So the question was simple. If they left, where was the part where they actually living? The next day, Tuesday, August 13, Chris stood in front of the camera and talked to media. He said that he just wanted Shannon, Bella, and CeCe to come home, and the house felt empty without them. So he looked like a worried husband, but up close the details weren't matched his story. And to understand why suspicion moved toward Chris so fast, we need to back up a little. By the summer of 2018, Chris and Shannon's marriage was in the worst shape than it looked from the outside. And Shannon had noticed that Chris was colder, more distant, less connected, like he had started stepping out of the life they had built. And behind that distance, there was a secret. Chris had been having a relationship with a coworker named Nicole Kessinger, And let me say that don't mix up two names here because Nicole Atkinson was Shannon's friend and Nicole Kessinger was Chris's coworker. Nicole Kessinger was in charge in this case and officials didn't name her as an accomplice. But the relationship mattered because it showed that before Shannon disappeared, Chris was already living two separate lives. At home, he was Shannon's husband and Bella's and CeCe's father, but outside the house, he was hiding parts of his real life. And according to what Chris later told the investigator, he was using a secret calculator style app to hide certain photos. And he also deleted his Facebook and just days before Shannon disappeared, and guess why? It was because he was worried about the people around Nicole might search him and find out that his wife was pregnant. Just a weekend before everything happened, August 10 through August 12, Shannon was in Arizona for work. And that same weekend, Chris went out with Nicole, and according to Chris, he just paid with the credit card he shared with Shannon. And just imagine this. One small transaction, one small change. It might be nothing right now, but when you're hiding something, it can become a problem. And after that, Shannon came back home on August 13. From this point on, we have to be careful because a lot of what happened inside the house comes from Chris's later version of his story. And Chris actually changed his story more than once. According to Chris's later account, a few hours after Shannon got home, they talked about their relationship and separating, and he actually told her that he didn't think the marriage is gonna work, and later he claimed that Shannon told him that he would never see the kids again. But that line only came from Chris, because there was no independent witness there to see or hear it. What was officially recorded was Shannon's cause of death, strangulation by manual pressure to her neck, and her death ruled a homicide. In addition, according to Chris's later account, after Shannon died, Bella just walked into the room and asked what was wrong with her mom. And Chris said he told Bella that mommy just wasn't feeling good. Then he wrapped Shannon's body in a sheet and brought her downstairs. But this is where exactly Chris's first story falls apart, because at first he told police that Shannon had killed the girls and he just killed Shannon after seeing that, but his later version was completely different. According to Chris, Bella and CeCe were alive after Shannon died. Around 5:27 a.m., Chris backed his work truck up to the garage and he put Shannon's body in the truck and he put the girls inside too. Bella and CeCe were on the back seat and each of them had their own blanket. Also, Shannon's body was on the floor of the truck. Then he drove to one of his work sites, an oil site called Survey 319. Bella asked questions about her mom on the way, and when they got to the site, Chris took Shannon's body out of the truck and placed her on the ground. But the girls were still inside the truck. And to be honest, Chris killed CeCe first. Her autopsy later listed her cause of death as a smothering, and her body was found inside an oil tank. When he returned to the truck, Bella just realized that something bad had happened to her sister, and she asked that if the same thing was going to happen to her. And unfortunately, yes, she was killed too, and her cause of death was also listed as a smothering, and her body was found inside a separate oil tank. I almost forgot to say that Shannon was buried nearby in a shallow grave, and after that, Chris just went back to work. And you know what I'm thinking about? Well, he just acted like nothing had happened at all. And he just talked to people, he texted to people. We were talking about his family, not a random person. On the other hand, Nicole Atkinson was getting more worried. The police were inside the house and the family members were looking for the answer. After that, the investigator found that Chris had talked to a real estate agent about selling the house, and he also had contacted with the girls' school to say that they wouldn't be enrolling that fall. I want to add something here, and I believe for a man who said that he was waiting for his family to come home, everything was moving too fast, and I think he just wanted to start a new life. On Wednesday, August 15, Chris took a polygraph and the result didn't go in his favor. And after that, Chris spoke with his father and gave his first confession. But that wasn't even the whole truth because he said that Shanann killed the girls and he killed Shanann after seeing that. And even when he couldn't deny everything, he was still trying to put the blame on Shanann. I guess the important part is here because after getting on the confession, Chris marked 3 spots on an aerial photo of Sector 19. One actually was for Shanann and the other 2 were for the girls. Well, that same night, Chris was arrested and search at oil site confirmed the truth because Shannon's body was found in a shallow grave near the tanks and Bella and CeCe were found in 2 separate oil tanks. On August 20, 2018, Chris Watts was formally charged with 9 counts. 5 counts with first-degree murder and 1 count related to unlawful termination of Shannon's pregnancy and 3 counts related to tampering with the bodies. And on November 6, 2018, Chris pleaded guilty to all 9 counts. And with Shannon's family agreement, the death penalty was taken off the table. Moreover, on November 19, 2018, Chris Watts was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus additional years for the death of Shannon's unborn baby and for hiding the bodies. So here we are with another case, and let me know what you think about it because I believe Chris had enough options. I mean, cheating is not correct, but it doesn't mean that you should kill your husband, your wife, your children, or any of that. So tell me what you think about it. And I miss homicide, as you know that. And if you want more cases like this, just subscribe my YouTube channel.